Hey everyone, it's the Firefly Captain here, and this is a Nerf 1994 Switchfire missile barrel. Except actually it's not, because I 3D printed it. So you may recall that a little while back I got my hands on this legendary blaster right here, thanks again to Oozified. Seriously cannot thank him enough for selling me this blaster. And as you guys can see, I did actually fix it. If you watched the first video, then you might remember that this was actually broken. So by using some plastic weld, it actually has been holding up pretty well, and it works. And this Switchfire is pretty great. You can see it actually has the stickers on both sides, and it has the ballistic ball barrel, but it is missing the missile barrel. Let's fix that. So I got the great idea to 3D model and print my very own replica that was as close as I could reasonably get it to the actual thing. I figured it was doable. It was really just a matter of getting it to fit on the blaster, have it actually be sealed so that it was functional, and to just have it look as close as I really could. However, there actually was one little problem. I didn't have any missiles. Missiles that I can use. So I got my hands on an NB1 missile launcher, and as you can see, it actually has all three of the missiles, so this was perfect. Later, I even took it a step further and got my hands on a missile storm, because these missiles are actually the same ones that would have been with the Switchfire. So now we have the missiles, but there's still kind of another problem. How are we even going to design this thing? Because it would theoretically be a lot easier to design it, design this replica, if I had it in my hands, because then I could get exact measurements of everything, but the whole reason we're even making it is because I don't have it, right? So that's not exactly an option. So I kind of started off with looking at what was available, but it just wasn't enough. So I reached out to Vintage Nerf. Huge shout out to Vintage Nerf. He has just hands down the most incredible collection of vintage Nerf blasters that you will ever see. But I reached out to him because in his collection, he also has, I kid you not, two Switchfires, one of them with the box. I think it's just the one. So that's incredible. He has the most amount of Switchfires I think it is known for anyone to have. So yeah, if there's one person to reach out to, it's him. So he sent me a bunch of photos, and I might actually share a few of them over here so you guys can also see what it's really supposed to look like. And so I got to work, and I kind of realized that I could split this project up into two parts. I had what I called the missile post, and then the missile shroud. This right here is the missile post, and it is the main functional part of the barrel. It is the piece that actually clips onto the Switchfire using the slot system, and then the air actually flows through the post to actually launch the missile. So of course the first thing to really do was get that slot system going so you could actually put it on the Switchfire, which I actually, it really only took like a few tries, and then I actually got it to work pretty well, so that was actually pretty nice. And then from there it was just kind of developing the rest of it, and to get the post relatively simple, but then I was trying to do testing with it, and it wasn't firing the missile, and I was trying over and over and over again with little changes to try to see if I could get a better seal, and it's almost kind of embarrassing actually how long it took to figure out like why it wasn't sealed. It turned out that like the top part here, this base, was actually porous, because I figured this out when I was just shining it up to the light. I was actually just trying to see how the light would shine through the actual post piece, but what I discovered was that light was actually shining through, again, right through this top part. It was just porous enough, and so it wasn't sealed. And so you guys can actually maybe see that there is some electrical tape kind of around the post, kind of covering that part that was porous to actually, give it the seal. That's kind of the way I tried to fix that. And actually, it was surprising to me because I had considered the fact that like maybe when I did the missile shroud, that it would just fix that, because that's like another layer on top that would help with the seal. But surprisingly, it was not enough actually. So yeah, just putting some electrical tape kind of around there. Really, I guess it doesn't have to be electrical tape, but preferably probably some sort of thicker kind of rubbery tape would definitely do the job. I'll talk more about performance later, but even with this addition, it's not very great, but it does technically fire the missile actually But I think I might play around with it more. You know, I might even just add more tape on there to help the seal. It's something I can try. But yeah, we can play around with it more, and I can see if I can try to get better performance out of this piece. But very nice. And then we have the second part, which I referred to as the missile shroud. Functionally, this is not as important, as it's not necessarily the piece that has the seal to actually fire the missile, but it's still very much important for this project. And I figured that, you know, it would be more geometrically complex to model, and in some ways it was actually, but I really didn't have like too much trouble modeling this, and I'm very proud of how it looks. I think it looks fantastic, to be honest. Just besides whatever slightly messy printing, you know, that happened with it. Structurally, it printed very nicely, no under extrusion, but there was a lot of excess little strands and stuff, and so, you know, printing quality is, of course, a big thing as well, right? But no, actually, I think it's great. Once you have both pieces, you can just slide this over and then align the screw holes. Now, speaking of the screw holes, what I actually realized is that they are not quite aligned with one another, so I may have to go back and change that because that would definitely be for the best, right? But what I also might do is actually increase the diameter of those screw holes, because what I did to fix this one was I used my Dremel tool and I just kind of like increase the diameter of the hole so that way the two holes could overlap with one another more, and that actually did fix it. And what was actually really nice, this is a very, very minor detail that's like definitely not important at all, right? But what was so nice is that because of also now the larger hole, it allowed me to actually use one of these screws. So this is just like a slightly larger Nerf screw, not like the super standard ones. It's 0.1 inches in diameter, and it's a little bit closer to, in fact, actually, it's almost exactly like the screw that is in the actual thing, right? I was kind of looking at the reference photos, and it does appear to have kind of this larger head screw, and I would imagine it'd probably be about this size, so the 0.1 inch diameter screws. But once you got it assembled like this, you can insert the screw, which is kind of tricky doing it the way I'm doing right now. There you go. And so now I want to show you this thing in action, so I'm going to very carefully remove the ballistic ball barrel. And now we can take this thing and slide it right on, and then give it a twist. And there you go. Now we can load this thing up with our 3 missiles. So you can put it in the main barrel, and then there are the 2 holders on the sides. And once you got them all in there you go, it's all loaded up. And I can show you that it does work, but again, not very good. It may have seemed like it was pretty nice from this perspective, just kind of seeing it fly out the screen, but it's really not going very far, actually. So again, I might try to play with that more and see if we can get any sort of extra range out of that, but the nice thing is that it does technically work, and it looks fantastic. And of course, it still has the function of being able to clip it onto the other barrel like so. So I think that's pretty awesome as well. But admittedly, it does not quite work the exact same way that's really supposed to. If I remove this again, I can show you that this part right here, there's kind of a tiny little nub right at the end here, and that piece is technically supposed to clip into a hole that's actually kind of within this unit. It doesn't really do that. It isn't quite the same, I guess, dimensions and everything for it to actually do that. So it really just kind of like friction fits in there, actually. But if you put it in enough, it actually has a nice enough hold where it's relatively stable and everything. It works, right? It's technically not how it's supposed to be, but I think it's okay. It clips on and it has a nice hold, so honestly, I think that's alright, but that is maybe one more thing that I could potentially improve about this blaster. But just take a moment to look at this thing. I mean, it literally looks like a complete Switchfire. I really think that I did a great job with replicating this thing, and I am very proud of how this thing turned out because it just looks awesome, especially with those missiles on there too. It's just such a cool looking blaster. It really is so neat. But yes, very proud of how that looks. So Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.